Esther Greenwood is a 19-year-old college student who is incredibly smart and very talented in writing. With that writing, she has won numerous scholarships and awards, and that is how the book starts off. She is in New York because she had won a writing contest and is one of the 12 college girls who are on the guest editing staff of Mademoiselle magazine. Now, what makes this novel fascinating is Sylvia Plath's insight on mental illness. She describes it so well and makes it so clear to the reader who really might not have any idea of what mental problems are, and that's because she had mental issues, so she can really show the reader what's going on in a patient's mind during a mental breakdown. Now, the protagonist would obviously be Esther, and she's fighting these mental issues, but antagonists would be people like Buddy and Joan, and people who, not purposely, but do fuel Esther's mental instability. Now, Buddy, for example, Buddy really makes Esther question her sexuality when he openly admits to Esther that he had an affair while they were in a relationship, and that really makes Esther wonder about her and if she's really been doing the right stuff. Now, Joan is in constant competition with Esther for Buddy. Now, what Joan symbolizes is everything Esther wants. At the psychiatric ward, Joan has all the abilities to go on walks, go into town, go shopping, everything that Esther wants. Now, the main conflict would be Esther and fighting against the mental illness, and Esther's struggling to beat this, and it starts off while Esther is in New York and she throws all her clothes off the top of the Amazon, and that signals where the mental problems start and how she's going to have to struggle with it from that point on to the rest of the book, and evidently through the rest of her life. Now, the use of chronological order in the book is necessary because it really gives a step-by-step explanation of the progression of her mental problems. Now, what Sylvia Plath does is she uses flashbacks to show events that happened in Esther's past that really have helped with her becoming this mental unstable person, such as when Esther is with Buddy at the junior prom and at his hospital seeing the baby be born. Now, one of the strengths of this novel is the insight on mental illness and the detail. The detail she gives not on just mental illness but everything. She makes a picture in the reader that is so easy to relate to that it makes it easier for someone who knows not much about mental problems for them to understand what it really is about. But the one thing that I still had problems with was these mental unstable thoughts that Esther had. Even though it was through such a detail, it was hard for me to relate my life to hers through all these mentally crazy thoughts that Esther was having. Now, one symbol that Esther commonly uses is the bell jar. She says that she's inside the bell jar, being separated from the world, and that in the bell jar she feels sad, depressed, and she feels this alienation. And for example, Esther says that wherever I sat, on the deck of a ship or at a street cafe in Paris or Bangkok, I would be sitting under the glass bell jar, stewing in my own sour air. And by this, she means that she would always feel that sad, depressed feeling no matter where she was, what the setting, what the situation, she would always feel that. Now, one thing that she does use is water. Now, when Esther was in New York, she takes a bath after coming back from Lenny Shepard's house, and the water, she says, is dissolving everything. She says New York is dissolving. she's dissolving, Doreen is dissolving, and it really made the reader know that there was something wrong with her mentally. Now, the mental health system in the novel is obviously progressing. It's not extremely effective, but doctors like Dr. Gordon, who symbolize the lower class, the average of psychiatrists, who are using these more primitive methods that are not so successful, such as using the electroshock therapy without these other things like putting the patients to sleep or really connecting with patients, which Dr. Nolan, on the other hand, does, and that's what really makes her patients successful, and it really is the mark between the older age of psychiatric treatment and the modern age. Now, the three significant settings would be New York, Esther's home, and the psychiatric hospital. Now, New York is where the mental breakdown really starts, and that starts with her throwing all her clothes off the top of the Amazon. Now, at Esther's home, that's where the most progression starts. She gets from bad to worse. Now, that's because she's home. She was not accepted to a summer writing program that she had tried to be, and so she had no inspiration, no motivation, and she was just alone with her mother, who was not really that mentally stable as much as Esther was either. So that really did not help her at all. Now, the psychiatric hospital, that was one place that Esther really started to recover, but it was really not enough. It was evident that she still had her problems, and she always would. Now, a woman's role in society at the time period was to stay home, to clean, and to raise the kids, and that's it. They really had nothing that they could do that was interesting. They really had no choice. So what Sylvia Plath did was she showed that, like her, they could do something different. They could be what they wanted to be. They could have any job or whatever they really dreamed of doing. They did not have to have this. They did not have to be the image that society wanted them to be. I believe Esther may not be totally ready to leave the hospital because, like the reader, she was doubting herself about how she would do. For example, when the nurse tells Esther that she's moving from Kaplan to Belsize, she thinks that they've made a mistake or something because she sees that she's made no progress. Nothing's happened. She thinks that something's wrong, that she'd be going to Weimar, which is actually a step down. So why, after having nothing happen at all, possibly getting worse, would she be moving to Belsize? Now, I feel that The Bell Jar overall was an extremely detailed and well-written novel. It offers insight on mental illness that most authors can't give, but overall I believe it is just a book that requires a more mature mind for my age, but a great read overall.